It's time for the news.
In today's top stories, the President of the Republic is taking part in New York in the 78th Ordinary Session of the UN General Assembly. Earlier, he had several meetings in New York with several heads of state. War veterans ministers stressed that the positions of Algerian diplomacy under the President of the Republic won the respect of the international community. And the Algerian civil protection teams in the Libyan city of Derna have pulled 126 lifeless bodies from the rubble since the start of their solidarity mission. Hello and welcome on Radio Algeria International. The President of the Republic is taking part in New York in the 78th Ordinary Session of the UN General Assembly. Each September, world leaders and delegates gather at the United Nations headquarters in New York to discuss the most pressing issues. This year, the 78th session of the UN General Assembly opened on the 5th of September, and its high-level segment, formerly known as the General Debate, began today. A general debate is held each September, which is typically attended by heads of state and government. This year's general debate runs until Tuesday, 26 September. Member states take turns delivering speeches and are given a right of a reply when required. They use the opportunity to raise a topic which reflects an issue of importance to them. The theme of the debate is rebuilding trust and reigniting global solidarity, accelerating action on the 2030 Agenda and its sustainable development goals towards peace, prosperity, progress and sustainability for all. Meanwhile, the President earlier had meetings in New York with several heads of state on the eve of the 78th Ordinary Session of the UN General Assembly. The meetings and discussions with his counterparts from several countries focused in particular on bilateral cooperation as well as regional and international issues. The President met with his Turkish counterpart Recep Tayyip Erdogan, his Iranian counterpart Ibrahim Raisi, and Swiss counterpart Mr. Alain Berset. The meeting took place in the presence of the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad, Ahmed Attaf, and the Permanent Representative of Algeria to the United Nations in New York, Amar Benjama. Earlier, the Algerian President met with his Palestinian counterpart, Mahmoud Abbas, who praised Algeria's unswerving position regarding the Palestinian cause. Health Minister Abdelhak Saihi has highlighted from New York the various achievements accomplished by Algeria in the fields of health, education, teaching and social progress. During his participation in the UN High-Level Forum on the Sustainable Development Goals, Saihi affirmed that Algeria has made significant progress within the framework of the Sustainable Development Plan of the United Nations.
In line with Algeria's participation in the 78th Summit of the United Nations and within the framework of the United Nations Sustainable Development, Algeria seized the opportunity at this forum to showcase the achievements made in line with the United Nations 70 Sustainable Development Goals. It was also an opportunity to shed light on Algeria's achievements in terms of health, teaching, education and social progress. If we compare the previous result with the current ones, we can affirm that the government's roadmap and the different achievements made in several sectors go in line with the United Nations goals, which means that we are up to date with the United Nations 2013 agenda, and by then we will have another program for social development.
Let's note that Health Minister Abdelhak Saihi took part in the UN High-Level Forum on the Sustainable Development Goals at the headquarters of the United Nations in New York. Meanwhile, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has said in New York that now is the time for a global plan to rescue the Sustainable Development Goals, which are woefully off track halfway towards their 2030 deadline. Mr. Guterres was speaking at the opening of a high-level forum at UN headquarters where world leaders adopted a political declaration to accelerate action to achieve the 17 goals which aim to drive economic prosperity and well-being for all people while protecting the environment.
So the SDGs aren't just a list of goals. They carry the hopes, dreams, rights and expectations of people everywhere. and they provide the surest path to living up to our obligations under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, now in its 75th year. Yet today, only 15% of the targets are on track, and many are going in reverse. Instead of leaving no one behind, we risk leaving the SDGs behind. So, Excellencies, the SDGs need a global rescue plan.
World leaders adopted the SDGs in 2015, promising to leave no one behind. The goals include ending extreme poverty and hunger, ensuring access to clean water and sanitation, as well as green energy and providing quality universal education and lifelong learning opportunities. UN General Assembly President Denis Francis noted that despite commitments, 1.2 billion people were still living in poverty as of 2022. He said the international community cannot accept these numbers.
Despite commitments to eradicate poverty and to reduce hunger being at the core of this agenda, alarmingly, 1.2 billion people were still living in multidimensional poverty as of 2022. It is estimated that approximately 8% of global population, or 680 million people, will still be facing hunger in 2030. Can we accept these numbers? Or, because they make us uncomfortable, should we pretend they do not exist and carry on with business as usual? Surely we cannot. To do so would amount to being reckless. Rather, we must do more to lift people sustainably out of poverty and hunger, not merely because it is the right thing to do in the name of humanity, but also because to do nothing would be to fan the flames of discord and conflict with well-known terrible consequences.
He also said that with concerted, ambitious action, it is still possible that by 2030, 124 million additional people could be lifted out of poverty and ensure that some 113 million fewer people are malnourished. The President of the Shura Council of the Sultanate of Oman, Sheikh Khalid bin Hilal bin Nasser Al Mawli, has been received by a number of Algerian officials, including Premier Ayman bin Abdurrahman and Energy Minister Mohammed Arqab, among others. The details with Asya Bika.
The Prime Minister Ayman bin Abdurrahman has received here in Algiers Sheikh Khalid bin Hilal bin Nasser Al Mawli, President of the Shura Council of the Sultanate of Oman, and now on a working visit to Algeria, according to the Prime Minister's office. During this meeting, the two parties expressed their satisfaction about the level of relations between the two countries while affirming their common will to strengthen and diversify these relations to include all areas, in particular the activation and revitalization of bilateral cooperation. Minister of Energy and Mines Mohammed Arqab also met with the Omani official with whom he evoked bilateral relations in the field of energy and mining and ways of developing them. The meeting, which was attended by the ambassador of Oman to Algiers, was an opportunity to assess the state of bilateral cooperation relations in the field of energy and mining, described as excellent, and the means of developing them. On the occasion, Mr. Arqab presented the broad outlines of the development program for Algeria's energy and mining sector, as well as the organizational framework governing energy and mining activities, which offers numerous facilities and advantages for investors. The minister stressed the investment and partnership opportunities offered in the energy and mining sector in Algeria, particularly in terms of hydrocarbons, their development and use, as well as in the field of energy and in the petrochemicals sector and mineral exploration.
Energy and Mines Minister Mohammed Arqab has received UK Trade Commissioner for Africa John Humphrey here in Algiers, with whom he examined ways and means to consolidate cooperation and partnership relations in the energy and mines sector. The discussion tackled consolidating cooperation and partnership between the two countries in the field of renewable energies, notably solar and wind energy, and their use in network and transport towards landlocked and agricultural regions. They also discussed training and local manufacturing of energy equipment. Arqab presented an overall review of Algeria's renewable energies development program, notably the implementation of the program that aims to reach 15,000 megawatts in solar energy by 2020 or 35. He also reiterated Algeria's desire to work more towards the development of its resources and to further explore its mining resources. For his part, the British official affirmed that discussions were very fruitful, expressing his country's availability to develop partnership and cooperation relations with Algeria, consolidate economic and trade consultations, and exchange experiences. As you followed in our top stories, Algeria celebrates today the 65th anniversary of the creation of the Provisional Government of the Algerian Republic. On this occasion, the Minister of War, Veterans, Laïd Derbiga, stressed that Algerian diplomacy under the leadership of the President of the Republic receives today the respect of the international community. He made his statement at a conference organized in coordination with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and National Community Abroad on the occasion of the celebration of the 65th anniversary of the creation of the Provisional Government of the Algerian Republic. Rabira stressed that the positions of Algerian diplomacy under the President of the Republic won the respect of the international community thanks to its constantly honored commitment, particularly in terms of support for just causes, its initiatives to solve various crises and peaceful settlement of conflicts at the regional and international levels. The conference was held under the Provisional Government of the Algerian Republic, an enshrinement and consolidation of the November Declaration and the legitimacy of our glorious revolution. Now, the Algerian civil protection teams in the Libyan city of Derna have pulled 126 lifeless bodies from the rubble since the start of their solidarity mission following the devastating floods that recently hit the country. The Deputy Director of Statistics and Information at the Directorate General for Civil Protection, Colonel Farouk Ashur, said in a statement to the press that the civil protection teams were continuing their missions through a number of specialized teams, including the rescue and recovery team under the rubble and the team of divers mobilized in new search zones on the coast. The official pointed out that the civil protection search teams have mobilized all the material and technical equipment needed to speed up the search, emphasizing their professionalism and efficiency despite the difficult conditions on the ground. The Libyan National Agency for Bridges and Roads has said that 70% of infrastructure in the floods-hit areas in eastern Libya. Aisabika tells us more.
The agency said that 50% of the roads there were also damaged and alternative routes opened in the disaster areas to allow traffic. The Ministry of Education said that 114 schools were damaged and 15 floods hit cities and towns in eastern Libya. On September 10th, a Mediterranean storm Danielle triggered the worst floods in Libya in decades, which have so far claimed at least 5,500 lives and left another 10,000 missing, according to official statistics. In a statement on Monday, the Libyan head of Transport Ministry's Roads and Bridges Department said 11 bridges collapsed from the floods, including 2 bridges that linked Derna with the cities of Susa and Al Qubba and 6 others. Derna was hardest hit by deadly flooding caused by Mediterranean storm Danielle on September 10th, causing the city's dams to burst, washing away homes and people. He also said that 80% of the water pipelines in all eastern towns and villages collapsed and 50% of the roads in the devastated areas were damaged. He added, however, that his department managed to open alternative routes in affected and damaged areas. According to the UN Humanitarian Office, at least 3,958 people have died across Libya due to flooding, revising its previous death toll of 11,300. The UN office said that more than 40,000 people have been displaced across Libya's northeastern areas by the deadly floods.
Libya's unity government has said that 95% of the educational institutions in the eastern part of the country were damaged by the flash floods that killed thousands of people last week. The statement was made at a joint press conference in Tripoli by Minister of Education, who is also part of the government's emergency and rapid response team along with other officials. He said, however, that the school year will start next week across Libya. Now back to Algeria. The president of the National Human Rights Council, Abdelmajid Zalani, has received the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the right of peaceful assembly and freedom of association, Mr. Clément Yalet Sossivoul, as part of his work and visit to Algeria. During the meeting held on Sunday at the Council's headquarters, the two parties evoked the objectives of this visit, which will enable the United Nations to gain an insight into the changes that have taken place in Algeria in terms of protecting, strengthening, and organizing civil society, particularly associations, and the relations with state institutions in order to serve freedoms within an organized legal framework. For his part, the UN official stated that Algeria has made great strides in guaranteeing freedoms and in creating a large number of associations. 14 hours, 49 minutes Algiers time. This is Radio Algeria International. Coming up on our program, The Health Magazine.
Hello and welcome to this new edition of your weekly program, The Health Magazine, during which we will shed light on a very common health issue that affects many children around the world. Most kids have an excess of energy at times, but the main question is how often do you have to tell your child to slow down, stop interrupting, or stay still? Hyperactivity is a classic sign of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. It also occurs with other conditions. Hyperactivity means having increased movement, impulsive actions, and a shorter attention span, and being easily distracted. Attention deficit or hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, is marked by an ongoing pattern of inattention and or hyperactivity, impulsivity that interferes with functioning or development. People with ADHD experience an ongoing pattern of the following types of symptoms. Inattention means a person may have difficulty staying on task, sustaining focus, and staying organized, and these problems are not due to defiance or lack of comprehension. Hyperactivity means a person may seem to move about constantly, including in situations when it is not appropriate, or excessively fidgets, taps, or talks. In adults, hyperactivity may mean extreme restlessness or talking too much. Impulsivity means a person may act without thinking or have difficulty with self-control. Impulsivity could also include a desire for immediate rewards or the inability to delay gratification. An impulsive person may interrupt others or make important decisions without considering long-term consequences. The signs of hyperactivity are hard to miss, and they often prompt negative reactions from other people. Until you know the reason behind the behaviors, you may find yourself getting annoyed and thinking that your child is just acting out. But if your child has ADHD, his overactivity is caused by differences in how the brain works. Here are some behaviors that are common with hyperactivity. Talks almost constantly and frequently interrupts others, moves from place to place quickly and often clumsily, keeps moving even when sitting down, bumps into things, fidgets and has to pick up everything and play with it, has trouble sitting still for meals and other quiet activities. Now, what could be the cause of hyperactivity? ADHD is a frequent cause of hyperactivity in children, but it's not the only possible cause. Other conditions can cause kids to move around and talk too much, just for different reasons. Here are some of the issues you may want to read up on and talk about with your child's doctor. Let's explain a bit more what does ADHD mean. ADHD, or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, is a chronic condition marked by persistent inattention, hyperactivity, and sometimes impulsivity. ADHD affects children and teens and can continue in adulthood. ADHD is the most commonly diagnosed mental disorder for children. Children with ADHD may be hyperactive and unable to control their impulses, or they may have trouble paying attention. These behaviors interfere with school and home life. It's more common in boys than in girls. It's usually discovered during the early school years when a child begins to have problems paying attention. Adults with ADHD may have trouble managing time, being organized, setting goals, and holding down the job. They may also have problems with relationships, self-esteem, and addiction. We should also emphasize that being hyperactive doesn't just mean zooming around the room. Kids may fidget or have extra movements even when doing little things like tying their shoes, writing, or playing an instrument. Kids with ADHD also tend to be impulsive and have trouble paying attention. ADHD may look different at different ages. For example, a preschooler might be accident-prone, while a grade schooler might not be able to sit still long enough to finish his work. Anxiety disorder. Anxiety can make kids restless and unable to focus. Those symptoms sometimes lead people to mistake it for ADHD. It's not uncommon for a child to have both conditions at the same time, however. Hyperthyroidism. Kids rarely have this condition, but when they do, it can cause them to fidget and lack focus. It also often involves eye issues like an irritation or bulging. Inner ear disorders. Kids with inner ear problems are often hyperactive. These kids' need for constant motion may be caused by their hearing and balance disorders. Sensory processing issues. Kids with sensory processing issues can become hyperactive when they are overstimulated or understimulated. How to cope with hyperactivity. Getting to the bottom of your child's hyperactivity is a process that may take a few steps. A good way to start is by observing your child and taking notes. Having these notes will be helpful when you talk to a professional about your concerns, and it may help you get answers more quickly. Here is what you can do to understand what's behind your child's hyperactivity. Talk to your child's teacher. Hyperactivity can affect learning. That's why it's a good idea to reach out to your child's teacher. Together, you can talk about classroom strategies that can help, such as using a secret signal to cue your children to stay on task. Look into an educational evaluation. If you think your child's hyperactivity is affecting his learning, you or your child's teacher can request that the school evaluates him. Depending on the results, your child may be able to get services and supports to meet his needs. That might include things like taking breaks during tests or taking tests in a separate room, where there will be fewer distractions. Talk to your child's doctor. This is also a good place to start. Bring your notes with you to the visit and share your concerns. The doctor may want to rule out hyperthyroidism and other possible medical causes of your child's hyperactivity. There are some questions you're likely to be asked to get a better sense of what's going on. They may include things like how long you've been seeing this behavior, whether it's getting worse, and whether the teacher sees it too. The doctor may also recommend a psychological evaluation to look at how your child thinks and to assess whether he has ADHD or anxiety or both. Talk to specialists. You may be referred to more than one specialist to get to the bottom of your child's hyperactivity. An audiologist would look for hearing problems. A neurologist, psychiatrists, or developmental behavioral pediatrician would look for brain-based medical issues including ADHD, and a psychiatrist or psychologist would diagnose anxiety disorders. Professionals who can prescribe medications for these issues include your child doctor, a psychiatrist, a neurologist, or a physician's assistant. See a private learning specialist. ADHD can have a big effect on your child's learning. A psychologist can do an evaluation to see what the impact is and if any learning issues are at play. The tests are the same as what they use in a school evaluation. Tutors can help kids develop strategies to keep ADHD from getting in the way of their learning, but tutors don't perform formal evaluations. What you can do now to help your kid. Even if you don't get an evaluation, there are many things you can do to find support. There are also strategies you can try to help your child manage his behavior. Just remember to pace yourself. Trying too many at once can make it hard to figure out which ones are working the best for your child and for you. Here are some suggestions. Learn as much as you can. Understanding your child's hyperactivity is the first step to getting him the help he needs. The more you know, the better able you'll be to find ways to help him gain self-control skills. Observe and take notes. By observing your child's behavior, you may be able to spot patterns and triggers. Maybe his activity level rises as the night wears on, or perhaps he has a hard time falling asleep and is overtired. Recognizing the trigger allows you to try different strategies like changing his bedtime routine to have more quiet time and get a full night's sleep. Provide things to fidget with. Let your child chew gum, carry a stress ball, or have some other object to fiddle with. It can help direct some of the overactivity and cut down on your child picking up and playing with other items. Consider martial arts or yoga classes. Physical activities give your child an outlet for his energy. These can also teach your child to be aware of his movement and be in control of his body. Try different strategies. For new ideas on dealing with behavior issues, check out the expert advice in Parenting Coach. You might find helpful tips for handling your energetic child. Connect with other parents. Knowing you're not the only family out there dealing with hyperactivity can make a big difference. Connect with parents in similar situations and share information and advice. It can be a great source of support. Understanding more about what's going on with your child can help you start to get out in front of his behavior issues rather than always reacting to it. Looking at your child's strengths, finding support for yourself, and changing things a little at a time can make both of you feel more confident and in control. And with this, we come to the end of this edition of the Health Magazine. Do join us next week for a fresh edition of our program. Until then, have a good time and take care.